I graduated from nursing school on a Thursday and my family didn't come. Not because of traffic. Not because they forgot to write it down. They didn't come because my brother had a meltdown at a restaurant the night before, and my mom decided that everyone needed to stay home to keep the peace. I found out via text, 20 minutes before the ceremony started, while I was in the parking lot of the convention center, still in my scrubs from a night shift, holding my cap and gown in a plastic bag. My phone buzzed. Mom. Sweetie, we're so sorry. Brendan had a really rough night. We just don't think it's a good idea to bring him out today. We'll celebrate with you soon, I promise. Take lots of pictures. I sat in that parking lot for probably 4 minutes, just staring at the screen. 4 minutes doesn't sound long, but when you've worked 3 years of double shifts, of skipping holidays, of studying for board exams and hospital break rooms at 2 in the morning, 4 minutes is enough time to feel every single one of those nights hit you at once. I texted back, okay. And then I walked inside, sat by myself in a row of people whose families had driven in from 3 states away, and when they called my name, I walked across that stage alone. My coworker took a photo from the audience. She'd come because she knew. She always knew. That was 7 months ago. What happened after is what I need to tell you. I'm a nurse. I work pediatric ICU at a hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I'm 29. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment 20 minutes from the hospital, and I have a cat named Biscuit, who I swear understands human emotion better than most people I know. My life, on the outside, looks fine. Stable job, decent apartment, good friends at work, but for most of my adult life, there's been this weight I carry around that most people can't see. The weight of being the second child. My brother is 24. He's always been the center of our family's universe, and I say that not to be cruel about him. He's my brother, and there are things about him I genuinely love, but because it's the factual truth of how our household operated. Growing up, every vacation was planned around what he could handle. Every family dinner was organized around what he wanted to eat. Every milestone of mine, honor roll, prom, college acceptance, nursing license, was acknowledged and then immediately redirected toward whatever was happening with him that week. I told myself for years that I understood, that it was complicated, that families have different needs and you just adapt. I was good at adapting. I was so good at adapting that I think my parents genuinely forgot they needed to show up for me too. The graduation thing broke something. Not dramatically. Not in a way I could point to right away. It was more like a hairline fracture. You don't feel it until you put weight on it. The week after graduation, I went back to work. Picked up extra shifts, told myself I was fine. My mom called twice that week, both times to update me on how my brother was doing. Whether his new medication was helping, whether his therapist thought the recent outburst was a regression. She didn't ask how I was. Not once. And I didn't bring up the graduation. Because the truth is, I never knew how to bring things up in my family without being told I was making things about myself. That phrase, "You're making this about yourself." I heard it so many times growing up that I internalized it. I became someone who shrank her own needs down to nothing, who smiled at the right moments, who made sure everyone else was comfortable before she sat down. My coworker. I'll call her my work best friend because that's what she is. She's the one who finally said it out loud. We were eating lunch in the break room about 3 weeks after graduation, and she looked at me and said, "You know what you look like? You look like someone who got hit by a car and is trying to convince everyone the car stopped in time." I laughed, because what else do you do? "I'm serious," she said. "When are you gonna let yourself be angry about it?" I didn't have an answer. I'd spent so long managing everyone else's emotions that I'd lost the ability to sit with my own. But something about that question stuck. It followed me home. It was there when I fed Biscuit his dinner, when I brushed my teeth, when I lay in the dark listening to the city outside my window. When are you going to let yourself be angry? I think what happened next surprised even me. I didn't blow up. I didn't call my mom crying. I didn't post anything online or send a long text at midnight. I just stopped volunteering. That sounds small. It wasn't. In my family, I was the one who organized things. I was the one who remembered my dad's doctor appointments and reminded my mom to call the insurance company and researched my brother's new medication interactions when his prescriber was too busy to explain them clearly. I did this automatically without being asked, because that's the role I had always occupied. The responsible one. The capable one. The one who handled it. So I stopped handling it. Quietly. No announcement. Mom called asking if I'd looked into the family's hotel options for Thanksgiving. I said I hadn't gotten around to it. She called the next day asking about my brother's medication refill timeline. I said I didn't know, she should call the pharmacy directly. My dad texted asking if I remembered the name of the plumber I'd recommended 2 years ago. I said I didn't remember off the top of my head. None of these were lies, none of them were dramatic. I just let things land where they were supposed to land, with the people who were supposed to handle them. And I waited to see what happened. What happened was, things got chaotic for them. Not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily. My mom called more. Then my dad called. Then my brother texted asking where a document was. A document I had organized and filed for them 3 years ago because no one else would, and I said I'd have to look for it later. My mom called twice in one day and left a voicemail that said, with a slight edge of panic underneath the casual tone, "Everything's fine. Just checking in. Call me when you get a chance." I didn't call back that night. I went to a yoga class. I came home and made pasta and sat on my couch and watched a movie I'd been meaning to watch for 2 months, and it felt like the most deliberately selfish thing I'd ever done in my life. The real shift came 6 weeks in when my aunt called. My mom's older sister. She lives in Pittsburgh, she's retired, she's the kind of woman who says exactly what she means and doesn't particularly care if it makes you uncomfortable. She called me on a Tuesday evening out of nowhere. "I heard about your graduation," she said, before I could even get through hello. "Oh." I didn't know what else to say. "Your mother told me," in passing, like it wasn't a big deal. "Said everyone stayed home because of your brother." I've been thinking about it ever since. I sat down on the edge of my bed. "It was fine." "It wasn't fine," she said. "And you know it wasn't fine, or you wouldn't have gone quiet on them." She was more perceptive than I gave her credit for. We talked for 2 hours. She told me things I hadn't known. That she'd watched this pattern since we were kids. That she'd said something to my mom once and been told to stay out of it. That she had always wondered when I was going to hit my limit. She wasn't angry on my behalf in a dramatic way. She was just honest, matter of fact, like she was describing weather patterns. "Your mom loves you," she said near the end of the call. "But she's been making you invisible for a long time. Not on purpose. But the effect is the same." "I know," I said. "Do they?" I didn't have an answer. She offered to be there if I wanted to have a conversation with my family. Not to take sides, she said, but to make sure I didn't get talked over. She'd seen it happen before. The way my family redirected every difficult conversation back to my brother. The way my mom's tears could derail anything. The way I would end up comforting the very people I'd tried to confront. "I'll think about it," I told her. I did think about it. For 3 weeks, I thought about almost nothing else. During those 3 weeks, things escalated without me doing anything. My mom called one evening and her voice had a new quality in it. Something tighter. She said my brother had been struggling, that my dad was stressed, that they'd had a hard week. And then she said something that crystallized everything. "I just wish you were closer, you know. We could really use your help." Not, "I miss you." Not, "How are you doing?" "We could really use your help." I was a resource to them. A functional piece of the household infrastructure. And it had taken me 29 years to see it clearly. I said, "I know, Mom," and got off the phone, and then I sat on my bathroom floor for about 10 minutes with my back against the tub and my knees pulled to my chest. Not crying exactly, more like recalibrating. My aunt called me 2 days later. She'd spoken to my mom. She didn't say what about, only that my mom had asked her to talk some sense into me. Apparently the months of quiet distance had been noticed and reframed as me being difficult. My aunt had declined to play that role. She'd told my mom that if there was going to be a conversation, it needed to happen on my terms, at a place I was comfortable, and that my mom needed to come ready to listen rather than explain. My mom agreed. I think she was scared enough by then to agree to most things. We set it up for a Saturday afternoon. My aunt's house in Pittsburgh. I drove out the night before and stayed with her, and we sat at her kitchen table until midnight while I told her everything. Not just the graduation. Everything. Years of it. Before I left the next morning, I printed things out. My mom's text from the night before graduation. A voicemail transcript from when I got my nursing license. I'd saved it somewhere. Some instinct had made me hold on to it, where my mom spent 4 minutes talking about my brother's latest evaluation and 20 seconds saying congrats, by the way, we're so proud. Dates and specifics. Not to make a legal case. Just to show that this wasn't in my head, that it wasn't me being sensitive. It was a pattern, with receipts. My aunt read through everything quietly and then set the papers down and said, "Okay, I'm ready." When my parents arrived, my brother was with them. That surprised me. I hadn't expected him to come. He walked in looking defensive already, the way he always did when he sensed conflict, and I felt the old instinct kick in, the reflex to smooth things over, to smile, to make it easier for everyone. I let it pass. My mom hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years. Maybe emotionally she hadn't. We sat in my aunt's living room. My aunt had made coffee, set out some things on the coffee table, kept everything deliberately normal feeling. When everyone was settled, she looked at me and said, "Okay, honey, go ahead." My mom jumped in immediately. "We're so worried about you. You've been pulling away for months. Your brother misses you. We don't understand what's happening." I noticed she didn't say she missed me. I noticed, and I let it sit. "I know this has been confusing," I said. "I want to explain it." I talked for a long time. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry, which surprised me. I'd expected to cry. Had braced for it. But I didn't. I just talked. I told them what the graduation felt like. I told them what the voicemail felt like. I told them what it felt like to spend my entire childhood being the capable one, the low-maintenance one, the one who didn't need anything because she never asked for anything, because she'd learned early on that asking cost more than not asking. My brother started to say something defensive halfway through, and my aunt just held up one hand, not unkindly, and said, "Let her finish." He stopped. That surprised me too. I put my mom's texts on the table. The ones from the day of my graduation. She looked down at them like she was seeing something she'd forgotten she'd written. "I didn't mean for it to come across that way," she started. "I know," I said. "That's almost the hardest part. You didn't mean it. But it happened. Over and over. It happened. Over and over. And nobody ever said sorry, because nobody ever thought there was anything to be sorry for." My dad, who had been very quiet, looked at me then. He said, "I didn't know you felt this way. Why didn't you ever say anything?" And this is the part I'd been carrying around for years, the thing I finally had words for. Because every time I came close to saying something, there was a reason it wasn't the right time. Brendan was having a hard week. You two were stressed. The family needed to hold together. There was always a reason for me to wait, and then the moment would pass and I'd tell myself it wasn't that big a deal. I did that for so long that I started to believe it myself. My mom was crying by then. The old instinct rose up in me. Comfort her. Backpedal. Say it's okay, it's fine. I'm not trying to make her feel bad. I didn't do it. I waited. My brother said, very quietly, "I know how much space I take up." He was looking at the floor. "I've always known. I just didn't know it came at your expense." That was the sentence I hadn't expected. I hadn't known I needed to hear it from him until I heard it. "I believe you," I said. And I meant it. He wasn't the villain in this. He was just a person who'd been placed at the center of a family system that couldn't see what that centering was costing. "What do you want us to do?" my dad asked. His voice was rough. I'd thought about this a lot. I didn't have a list of ultimatums. I had 3 things. "Stop expecting me to manage things for you," I said. I'm your daughter, not your coordinator. If there's a doctor's appointment or a pharmacy refill or a hotel that needs booking, figure it out. That's not my job. Second, when something good happens in my life, I need you to actually show up, physically, if at all possible, or if not, actually call. Not a text. Not after you've spent 20 minutes talking about other things. Actually call and ask how I feel. Third, get some actual support for this family. Therapy. A family counselor, someone who can help you figure out how to have two kids, not one kid in one support system. My mom looked at me for a long time after I said that. You've been thinking about this for a while, she said. My whole life, I said. I just finally found the words. She nodded. She didn't argue. She didn't try to explain or reframe or redirect. She just said, I hear you. And then, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm really sorry. My dad said it too. My brother said he was sorry. I sat with it. Didn't rush to say it was fine. Because it wasn't. Not yet. Didn't say we were good because we weren't. Not fully. I just said, thank you, that's a start. My aunt made more coffee. The temperature in the room shifted. Not to warmth exactly, but to something more honest than what we'd had before. On the drive back to Columbus that evening, I had the windows down even though it was cold. I had a playlist going. At a certain point, the song that came on was one I'd found through a random recommendation months ago, and I remembered the first time I heard it, I thought, this is exactly what I'd been trying to say, and I turned it up loud enough that I couldn't think. My relationship with my family since then has been different. Not fixed. Not close in the way I used to hope for when I was young and still believed hoping was enough. But honest. My mom calls now and asks how I'm doing before she talks about anything else. It's new enough that it still catches me off guard sometimes. My dad showed up to a thing at my hospital in March, just a small department recognition thing, nothing major. And he came by himself, drove 2.5 hours, stood in the back of the room and clapped. I didn't cry until I got to my car. My brother and I have been texting more. He sent me a meme last week that was genuinely funny, and we went back and forth for a while, and it was the most normal thing we'd done together in years. He's in therapy now. They all are, actually. Not together, separately, but still. I'm not going to tell you everything is resolved because it isn't. There are still moments where I feel the old weight. There are still phone calls where I have to remind myself that I'm allowed to have a limit. That saying, I can't talk right now, is not a character flaw. Some things take longer than a single hard conversation to undo. But I know something now that I didn't know a year ago. The version of me who walked across that graduation stage alone, who texted back okay in a parking lot, who spent years making herself smaller to fit inside other people's comfort. She did what she had to do to survive. And she deserved better. I'm the one giving her better now. So if you're someone who's been the invisible one, the capable one, the one who never asks for anything, I want you to hear this. Your silence is not the same as your consent. The fact that you didn't fall apart doesn't mean everything was fine, and the moment you stop holding everything together for people who don't notice they're being held together, that's not cruelty. That's just finally making yourself as real to them as they've always been to you. If you were me, would you have waited as long as I did? Or would you have walked out of that parking lot and made the call right then? I still think about that parking lot sometimes. The way the sun was hitting the concrete at a weird angle, the way I just sat there staring at my phone like if I looked long enough the text would say something different. It didn't, of course. And the version of me who typed back okay and walked inside anyway? I understand her now in a way I couldn't then. She wasn't weak. She was just someone who had spent so long absorbing pain quietly that she'd gotten very, very good at it. Here's what I've come to believe. The way we treat people has weight. It accumulates. Every time my parents redirected a moment that was supposed to be mine, every time a conversation about my life got rerouted back to my brother, none of that disappeared. It settled into me and eventually into the structure of our family itself. When I stopped holding things together, that weight became visible. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because things that are real don't stay hidden forever. That's not punishment. That's just how cause and effect actually works when you stop interrupting it. What I had to learn, and it took me longer than I'd like to admit, was the difference between being good and being used up. I thought those were the same thing for most of my 20s. I thought being a good daughter meant being available. Being a good sister meant making space. Being a good person meant not asking for too much. But goodness that costs you your sense of self isn't virtue. It's just a slow, disappearing act with a smile on it. Real integrity, I think, means being honest about what's happening, to yourself first, and then to the people who need to hear it. The conversation in my Aunt Sylvie's living room was the most honest I'd ever been with my family. It scared me more than any shift I've worked in the PICU, but it was also the first time I felt like a full person in that room. The clarity I found didn't come from a single moment of courage. It came from months of small decisions. Choosing not to fix what wasn't mine to fix. Choosing to go to yoga instead of answering a call. Choosing to sit with my own feelings long enough to actually understand them. Intelligence, I've learned, isn't just knowing things. It's knowing yourself well enough to recognize when a pattern is hurting you, and understanding it clearly enough to name it out loud without flinching. Joelle asked me when I was going to let myself be angry, and that question required me to be honest about something I'd been avoiding for years. That kind of self-knowledge is hard-won. I don't think I could have had that conversation with my family at 22. I needed the years in between to build the clarity. And then there's the part nobody talks about. What it takes to stay in it after the hard conversation. To not bolt when things get uncomfortable again. To rebuild something with people who hurt you while also holding a boundary that says, not like that, not anymore. That's the part that requires something deeper than just being brave once. It requires deciding, over and over, that you are worth the effort of a different kind of relationship. Brendan texting me that meme last week, that small, normal thing, cost both of us something. It cost him the easier route of pretending nothing happened. It cost me the protection of staying distant. We both showed up anyway. That's not nothing. I don't know what my family looks like in 5 years. I hope it looks like people who actually see each other. I'm working on making sure I'm someone who can be seen, not just needed.